Hey, Heart Warriors! Welcome back to one of the final episodes of Heart to Happiness, where I believe in this episode, we are going to bring everything together. So we have talked so much about the 7 key areas of wellness as it pertains to mood and happiness and how to have a better life, right? Like everybody, who doesn't want to be happier? So at this point, I hope that you've watched a lot of the videos and that you have put some of the things into practice. Like each speaker's got 3 different takeaways. Today, we're going to have some pretty powerful physiological and emotional takeaways. And the reason I brought on our guest today is because, as you guys may have heard in the video on why I even started this project to begin with, is it literally came to fruition the day that I came to visit my family in Sacramento to say goodbye to my aunt who is dying of breast cancer. And she had gone through chemo one time and then it came back, which is so common for people who go through these treatments because we're not getting to the root of why we're so sick and diseased. And so my passion now is to explore how emotions can affect our body, like literally how, you guys say, I have a gut feeling that blah, blah, blah. And then or a breakup, you may have heard Austin Blood, and I interviewed him talk about how an emotional breakdown, a breakup can actually be more damaging to the body than a heart attack. And the blood reports that they've done to see what our results look like after we've experienced breakup is very traumatic. So it can be actually what he said was it was as traumatic as going through cancer and cancer treatments. And I had that link over there so you guys could watch that video. But today we're going to talk about how emotions affect the organs like the liver and the kidney and the bladder, and how we're going to talk about poop today because you guys know that that's like my favorite topic. We have to talk about how poop and lack of pooping can lead to a poopy mood. And we're going to talk about all different spectrums. So it could be for kids, it could be for adults, it could be for you, it could be your family. So we're going to cover a lot of ground today. And I'm going to make the introduction so that you guys know what the topic is about, because this is the one I am the most passionate about, because you guys know me as Detox Die, right? All right. So I'm going to read this paragraph here, which is, we're going to talk about traditional Chinese medicine, and it's been around for 5,000 years plus. And the central principle that classifies the 5 major organ systems that are each associated with particular emotions, according to TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, organ systems involve pairs of organs and associated emotion. So here and here, the liver and the gallbladder here are associated with anger. The heart and the small intestine are associated with joy. And then you've got the spleen and the stomach, and they're associated with overthinking or pensiveness. Then you've got the lungs and the large intestine, the colon, that are associated with grief, like sadness. And then you've got the kidney and the bladder back here. Those are associated with fear. And so Chinese psychology is a super integral part of TCM, which focuses on the relationship between emotions that we feel and the organs and their effect on health. And so today I've got Stephanie Ray here to talk about that very thing. I've interviewed before. I adore her. She is super a wealth of knowledge on this. She's been doing it for over 25 years. She's a certified natural health professional, and she will be completing her naturopathic doctorate in 2017. So she's going to beat me to it. Welcome to the show, Stephanie.
Thank you, Diane.
Awesome. So we are going to get super deep today into, we're going to travel throughout the body. We're going to travel throughout the body, and like what I just said. So with what you have been practicing for 25 plus years, as it pertains to emotions and congestion, can you lead into some of the, if you could summarize what this is all about, and then lead into what you think are the most powerful concepts of mood and gut function out there?
Yeah, well, in traditional Chinese medicine, we say that when the emotions become so overpowering or uncontrollable to overwhelm a person, that they can cause serious injury, and the organs, internal organs, are hampered, and then we open the door for disease. So they really go hand in hand, the emotions with our organs' well-being, or the balance of our organs.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, so does TCM and what you've been learning more modernly in your naturopathic designation, and then your experience, clinical experience is, sometimes better than, what we've learned thousands of years ago. What you've seen and observed, is it that emotions affect our organs more, or is it that our organ congestion from, let's say, chemical toxicity, or let's say a bad kidney we were born with, affects our mood and state of mood more?
That's really like asking, was it the chicken or the egg? That's why when we practice, we deal with both. We always deal with the emotions, and it's not the intensity of the emotions, it's the prolonged effect. So if we're angry, it's fine. It's great to be angry. Everybody should get pissed off every now and then. It's just a natural part of being a human being. However, if the anger gets locked in, like say a stagnant liver, the chi, the energy in the liver gets stuck, then it can cause damage to the liver, to that organ system. And then the emotions back up, they rise up, and things in the liver have an affinity for the head. So we'll see things like ammonia rise up and be in the head. And then we have those circling thoughts that can't get out because the liver's congested, they're not moving down. And we'll see things like OCD type behavior or chronic frustration. You'll see people with a ruddy red complexion all the time. That's another sign of liver chi stagnation. So, when the emotions are, big, and we can express them, that's awesome. However, when we, withdraw and hold them in, then it becomes a problem.
Absolutely. And that's the chronic versus acute effect. And so one of the top 10 things, and I've done so much research on this whole happiness concept because I myself was depressed when I experienced all of the culmination of things that all just kind of synergized together. And I just went, whoa, holy wow. Everybody else's depression has become, mine. I feel this because I feel for other people. But that's what I noticed is that when one of the top 10 things of, if you want to be unhappy, hold on to an emotion for a long time.
Right.
Hold on and be the kind of person that's like, it's going to be really hard for me to, accept that things happen the way that they did. And it's going to be really hard for me to move on. And I'm not very welcome to, moving on. I'm just going to hold on to this and it becomes part of my story. And so I think I'm not sure people intentionally set out to be the victim, but I've done that in my past too. So I had liver problems, and gosh, how taking the herbs that I have helped me heal from trauma from my past, like you said, chicken or the egg. But if we don't address both of them at the same time,
right,
then one can, if you clear one up, then the other thing can unclear it up because you've got the negative thinking and the toxic emotions, even though you've cleaned out the toxic chemicals.
Right.
So, now let's talk specific. Oh, go ahead.
Well, you mentioned the toxicity. So that's the other side of the coin. That is, the chicken or the egg, because we do have an influence from the outside. So there's something like 73 known behavioral impacts by heavy metals and chemicals that Townsend Newsletter published. It was like 5 pages. Crazy. Single-spaced, what arsenic was known to do, what lead was known to do. And the overall impact of all of the metals together create depression. And so there's always, that's the reason why it's so important to keep toxins moving down and out. And we can do that with foods. We can do that with herbs. We can do that with water and exercise. There's so many ways to address it and just have that be part of our daily life because we're being exposed every day. Nobody is immune. Everybody, I have never seen one person's lab tests come back where they had low heavy metals. Never.
Me neither. They're all mercury, aluminum, off the chart.
Yeah, cadmium, lead, rubidium, tin. I could go on. We just finished a study and showed 50 kids. They were all high in dioxin, PVC piping.
What are those things, and where do they come from?
We've got PVC piping going into our homes that delivers our water from the city, from the municipal city sources. So we're, it's coming through our water supply. The dioxins in the air. I mean, it's why so many states now have a no idling law, because when cars and trucks sit and idle, we see a direct impact on children. New York City has 7 times higher lung and allergy problems in children under 12 than any other state because of how much pollution is around the schools in the city.
Oh, that's so unfortunate. Even both of us live in Orange County and we got the beach. It's supposed to be super clean air, but I've been seeing and actually doing a lot of research on a lot of these chemicals that they're spraying in the air that are no longer a secret. And I had 3 friends of friends that were all women in their 50s. Literally last month alone in April, 3 of them, one of them you actually know, Lauren's friend, and 3 women, lung cancer.
Oh, wow.
They're healthy women in their 50s. It's like, whoa, wait, what's going on here? We're breathing this stuff in. So it's not just New York, it's like everywhere. And I wonder if these studies are going to come out at some point, because it takes a while for studies to come out. So I would like to ask, because people, whenever I talk to people about, heavy metal toxicity, they're like, oh, well, I don't have any of this and I'm not doing any of that. So people tend to think that I'm immune from that. I'm indestructible. So what kind of heavy metals are we talking about? Where are they coming from? Maybe we could talk about like the top 5 most toxic, and then what kinds of negative effects can they have on the body that cause mood disruptions?
Sure. Well, it comes from the middle of the century. Post World War II, we used heavy metals in our war effort. And when the war was over, we liked the commerce, the jobs it provided. So we got really smart and started preserving our foods and medicines with it. And now it's everywhere. It's primarily in our cleaning products, commercial cleaning products that women use. I think it's over 40% women that work in the home. They have a 40% greater chance of developing cancer than women who work outside of the home. And they directly related that to cleaning supplies. And so we just thought, well, this is great. Let's, spray everything with chemicals and, herbicides, pesticides, and that type of thing. And the problem is that they block our ability to absorb nutrients. So right there, we were shooting ourselves in our left foot. Then in the right foot, we're shooting ourselves and blocking our endocrine systems, how our hormones work. And both of those have a direct impact on moods and whether we feel happy or, and it's a very slow mutation, Diane. Like it's very rare that it's bam, you got toxic heavy metals. It's an accumulation. It happens slowly. There's a wee bit in the water bottle you're drinking. There's, some in the air. In our foods, and it likes to accumulate in the fatty tissue. So the body's really smart. The reason it puts it in the fatty tissue is to pull it away from the organs that keep us alive. The liver, the kidney, the heart. And when those systems become overburdened or there's more toxins in the body than they can comfortably excrete, it really starts, moving out into the fatty or adipose tissue. And, when we start seeing this excessive, moodiness or depression, then we know it's also affecting the organs, that the accumulation has gotten that high.
Wow. So I would venture to guess that, as far as symptoms of heavy metal toxicity and just general toxicity would be, weight gain, then low energy, anything where someone says, oh, I'm so hormonal, my hormones must be going crazy.
Yes.
Then it goes into the mood, and then it starts to surface as a disease or a thyroid dysfunction or adrenal fatigue. And then then they go, oh gosh, well, I've been constipation. We'll talk about poop next. Yes.
Yay.
Yeah, it's like whenever I hear someone say, specifically women, they're like, oh, it must be my hormones. I'm like, wait. That's the symptom. You gotta look back and see what started the hormones, because the hormones are dumb. They're just reacting to something else that's going on in the body. So it's like, we can't just address the hormones. We can't just go for weight loss. We have to explore why those things are there to begin with, which is heavy metals, toxicity, digestive issues, constipation. So, so the water supply, I know that's what I always tell people is that's number one, first, drink more water. That's the best detox system, period. And number 2, have clean, healthy water. So, I always talk about that there's multiple ways to clean your water. Berkey water filters are great. There's all kinds of other stuff. You don't need to spend tens of thousands of dollars on your water systems, but the Britas and the Pures are just not cutting it. So, the other things that we're seeing, like the mercury and the aluminum, where are because I know those are the 2, mercury, aluminum, and then copper. I voice a lot about how I had copper toxicity when I had a copper IUD. We should just not be putting our beautiful goddess garden. Granted, I'm not saying, if you guys want birth control, that get off of it. I can, I work with people on that, getting them off of birth control and teaching them how to do it naturally. But those are sources that, for example, with women I know are exposed to it, even though they say, oh, it's in just small amounts. And then all of a sudden, what was it that one thing that sent me over? Well, it's like you said, the culmination of stuff. So where can people, start paying attention to where they're being exposed to these things in their lives?
Well, the first place is the teeth. We all, many of us have mercury amalgam fillings. So that's every time we chew, we drink hot coffee and we have amalgam fillings in our teeth. We chew something hard, a hard candy, we chew gum. We did a study with 19 people and showed that baseline, they were pretty okay. But when we had them chew with gum, all of them became off the chart in mercury inside their mouth, above what the EPA allows in the workplace. And this was in their very own mouths. And so then, we did an experiment and had them brush with 10 drops of NDF, rinse and spit, and it bound to 100% of the mercury vapor in the oral cavity. But that is, that you're so close to the brain. You've got the whole mucosal, crosses the blood. So it goes immediately into the system, the nervous system. And so that's one of the primary areas. And there's so many great doctors out today that can do removal, and put in, people are saying, was asked the other day, like, what kind of material should we use? And I said, well, there's now porcelain with diamond material in it. And they give, so it's really hard. So you don't have to worry about busting down the porcelain and getting cavities. And it actually comes with warranties and, a promise of how hard it's going to be. I mean, I think mine were a 7-year warranty and I've had them for 14 years. So, wow. And no cavities, knock on wood. But, there's solutions now. And that's something that I'm really passionate about people knowing is that, yes, we have a problem. And I don't want to put the fear of God in people and think like, oh my gosh, we're doomed. There are things that can be done. And it's really not that complicated. The body wants to heal. You really have to do things for a long time for it to get sick and stay sick, unless you trigger maybe a genetic issue. And that's one of the things that we see with heavy metal toxicity and chemical toxicity is a lot of times what it does is it lowers the immune system and the organs' ability to talk to each other, work in the way that they should. The organs of elimination, particularly moving the toxins out of the body, and then things back up and the pollution inside the body becomes so big that it can turn on genetic issues.
Yeah, that happened to me.
I'm sorry, you said?
Oh, I was that brought up a story for me when I did it. You can see, mine are all white, but mine are porcelain. I would love diamonds. I would love one on this hand too. Maybe one day I'll meet a nice guy. But the experience that I had, which looking back 5 years ago before I knew better, I had all of them removed at one time and every single one of my molars was a cavity. I had like the worst oral infections as a kid. I had gut infections and those two were so connected. So too, gut, brain, oral, gut, brain, all of it is connected, like Stephanie said. And I had all of them removed at once. And I didn't, this doctor was specifically certified to do it holistically. He still did it, but then I knew I had mercury toxicity. I mean, I'd had those cavities since I was like, I don't know, 8. I mean, bad. I used to carry Oreos to bed with me and not brush my teeth. So I've always had that sweet tooth, which is related to gut and infection too. So I had them removed. And then after I did that, I was like, I probably should do a heavy metal detox. And I did it the wrong way. I tried too much, too quickly, too soon. And I'm not kidding you, Stephanie. I had a week where I was super suicidal and I didn't trust myself. And I was texting my friends, I was texting my parents and calling my parents. I'm like, I don't trust myself right now. I can feel the metal in my head. Like when I don't know if you've ever felt this or if other people have felt this, but when I had fillings and I would accidentally, like, there would be foil, like in a, foil wrapped chicken from a Chinese restaurant or something. And I'd accidentally bite down on foil and my whole head was like, zzz, and it hurt so bad. That is how my head felt when I was trying to detox from this stuff. So it's not something that we need, we should go heavy into, because like Stephanie said, the body can only handle so much at one time. And it's been said now that 70-80% of us have leaky gut. Karan Krishnan, you can listen to that interview if you haven't already, about the gut-brain connection and how good gut bacteria, bad bacteria have an influence on our brain and our mood. And so if we have a leaky gut, we have a leaky brain. And if these things are right next to, like you said, the proximity, it can literally make us crazy. Then you've got people being diagnosed with like schizophrenia and bipolar and depression and anxiety. And then they're taking all these drugs that then have more heavy metals in them, and it perpetuates the cycle. And kids are getting prescribed this stuff at a very early age. I think the statistic is 1.25 prescription drugs for every high school student now is the rate. 1.25. Wow. Yeah. So
wow. That's intense. I know that 1 in 5 Americans is on some sort of mood enhancing drug.
Yeah. Which is pretty crazy. And then you've got people who are doing alcohol and heroin, and it's becoming just so commonplace now. So what can we do for kids? Because I know that you work with a lot of children and, very, very, very intensely in the autism community. And that's what I really love about you, is that we both are helping people in the autism community. So what are we seeing, and what kind of studies are we seeing on, the A's, like the autism, the ADD, the ADHD, and toxicity?
Mm-hmm. Well, in our testing, they all have high heavy metals and chemicals, and they all have gut dysbiosis. And, and that's true for a lot of kids on the planet. It's just that these kids happen to have gotten a diagnosis. And so for me, it's not so much that diagnosis. What it's telling me is that the organs of elimination are blocked. They're not moving things down and out. We have high levels of inflammation, systemic inflammation. We're going to have mood disorders because the serotonin, dopamine, the brain-gut connection is out of balance, or completely, they're not talking to each other at all. The crosstalk's just not happening. And so it's really, they have a sick body and they want to be well. They actually get what's going on. I myself, I don't know if you know this about me, Diane, but my younger boy, I carry the gene juvenile myoclonic epilepsy. And so it's something that I inherited, passed on to my 2 boys, and it turns on in, certain parts of the population. As I mentioned before, if the toxicity level is too high, it can turn on a genetic disorder. And that happened in our second son, Max. So he started having seizures at age 6 after a motorcycle accident and a heavy dose of intravenous antibiotics, and began having seizures 6 months later. And then 30% of those kids develop autism, and Max was one of those 30%. So Max is 22 now, totally recovered, was accepted to all 5 universities he applied for. He used to play semi-pro basketball in Europe. An amazing guy. And, 6'3". And it took 6 years to recover him. And but you can do it. And it's, done with a combination of, diet. You've got to look at different types of infection. You need to see what foods kids may be allergic to, do IgG testing, parasites. Max, we always had cats. The kids were always playing with the cats, playing with the dirt. I physically put pinworms into his little container and sent it to the lab, and they came back negative. And I'm like, Dr. So-and-so who owns the lab, like, are you kidding me? I actually put those little buggers in there myself. And he's like, well, Stephanie, we're only taking, off of a smear, a portion of that smear. And so it's very hard to detect them. So you just treat as if they have them.
Yes.
So, there's all these factors, but, it is completely possible, and there's hope, and people don't need to be afraid about asking for help and for talking to other parents and other people that know and treat. And, we work with a vast amount of doctors, MDs, pediatricians that work with kids on the spectrum. And, they've just got an extremely out of balance body. That's how we look at it.
Yeah. And there's like 5 things I wanted to go off onto, because you just took me on a whole bunch of other awesome points. Just to clarify for everybody that what she means by dysbiosis is more bad bacteria or more bad pathogens than good ones, like more bad parasites or fungus like candida, or bacteria, more bad guys than good guys. And there's a little bit of both. And so, you can listen to our the interview I had with Karan Krishnan about what dysbiosis is all about. And actually, we've talked a lot about dysbiosis through some of these other interviews that I've had as well. And then she mentioned IgG testing, and that is immunoglobulin testing that specifically looks for sensitivities, not allergies. So people are going in to get tested, traditional, doctors, and they're like, oh, something's wrong with me. We're all taught, go to your doctor. So what Stephanie and I are going to talk about next is, if you have a symptom, what can you maybe try at home? And we're not saying that if there's something extreme to not go to your doctor, because, that would be irresponsible of us, because we're supposed to say, go to your doctor. But certain kinds of symptoms, then, like itching, or if there's like something on your arm, maybe they'll find it in the hospital, maybe they won't. But there is specific type of testing that looks for root causes of disease, versus if a disease is already there and you go to the doctor and they're like, oh, we don't know what's wrong with you. We don't know. And, where they also don't even perceive that parasites are bad or harmful to us anyway. I did want to touch on 2 things. The genetic test that you took, what was it to determine that gene? Was it 23andMe or was it a different one?
Actually, it was Max. Because they could not diagnose Max for 4 months. They did not know what was causing the seizures. And so we did a sleep-deprived EEG study, and it was detected through that EEG. And the only way that JME is passed on is genetics. So, and then later you find out when you tell the family, like, oh my gosh, this is what's happening. And then I have, my aunt say, oh my gosh, Benny had those when he was little. So then you start going, oh, it really does run in our family. So yeah, it's like that, and only 20% of the people that it turns on in JME does it turn off. So only 20% go into remission. But if you do the work and you clean up the body, Max has been seizure-free and off of medication since he was 12. Wow.
Now, there's people who, have you ever heard of Lissa Rankin before?
No, I haven't.
Look her up. She's pretty awesome. Lots and lots of TED Talks and lots of books. She's a doctor who, talks a lot about placebo and the power of the mind. And, if in this study, they said that, we're going to give you this and it should do this. And we're going to give you this and it should do this. And in 2 different ones, they said, we're going to give you this and you're probably not going to make it. You're going to give you this and you probably will make it. It was the same thing. And it actually fulfilled itself just by giving them, I think it was like saline or something, like salt water or something like that. And it's like the power of the mind. And so of that 20%, you guys made it because of the belief and the support and the love. There's so many components to it, but a lot of us want to feel that we're tied to these genetics. And so antibiotics, genetics load the gun, but environment pulls the trigger. And environment is diet, rest, exercise, stress, supplementation, rest, prescription drugs, the air we breathe, the water we drink. And so the antibiotics can actually negatively impact our genes. So we're seeing that so much now. Kids are antibiotic, like crazy, prednisone, like crazy, injected with all kinds of crazy stuff at an early age. It's like, oh, these poor kids, like what kind of chance do they have? C-sections like crazy, no immune system when they come out of mom's body. So how are antibiotics negatively affecting our mood because of what they're doing to our genetics?
They directly kill both the good and the bad bacteria in the GI tract. And then, we lose that ability to have a healthy connection to the brain, because the brain, and one of your other doctor speakers sounds like he's covered this. So I may be repeating what he shared, but the brain has the same the GI tract has the same chemistry as the brain. Same exact chemical makeup. So when the gut is impacted, we limit the ability for things that make us happy, serotonin, dopamine, and those types of things. And so antibiotics kill all of that. So it's really important. I really encourage parents to make a prebiotic breakfast, just some oats, some yogurt, and some fruit. Put it in the fridge at night, blend it up in the morning, give it to their kids. They can add a little honey. But what that does is that directly starts growing prebiotics in that breakfast. Then if you give a child something good at lunch, like say some broccoli, it will actually grow and make probiotics with that broccoli later in the day from the probiotics that are naturally occurring in the broccoli, but that don't proliferate if you don't have the prebiotics there from the morning. So there's a way to really help our kids keep, sustained energy, keep the gut healthy. And it's really not too difficult, but it does take a regularity. Like kids need to be supported in their GI tract function. And then when they are on antibiotics, I like to talk about giving probiotics, Saccharomyces boulardii, and then something like a cell wall broken probiotic. But those three seem to just clean it up really quickly, like in a matter of like a week or so.
Yeah. And even so, it would be ideal if we can keep our kids' immune systems healthy enough where they wouldn't need so many antibiotics. Since like I see a lot of people pointing, it's such a crazy controversial thing happening now with like, make sure you get vaccinated at school so you don't spread these coughs and things. And it's like, really what is damaging all of us is that our immune system is down, because what I say with every bite that we take, it's either supporting our immune system or it's taking away from our immune system. It's either, feeding the good bacteria or it's depleting the good bacteria. And it's like,
that's a great way to say it.
Yeah. And so which one you get to choose at the end of your fork every day, whether or not you are more immune or less immune to things that are around us, because we're always exposed to all this stuff. That's never going to change. If not, that's going to get worse. So we get to support it. I wanted to clarify with the breakfast, you said yogurt. So there's all kinds of yogurts out there. I'm sure people are maybe going to go grab for the 35
Make sure
grams.
It says live cultures. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry. Thanks for pointing that out. You have to make sure it says live cultures. And you can get like soy yogurt that has live cultures in it too.
Yeah. And then there's also the ones.
A casein issue.
Right. Or like, I even have some people who do well with, sheep yogurt, who don't do well with dairy yogurt. And then I'll just have them experiment and try maybe, coconut yogurt too. So there's all different kinds, but as you guys may have heard in the Warrior Cleanse, if you've done that with me before, if you're looking at your calories, if there's 100 calories, just do the math. 100 for every 100 calories, make sure it's less than 5 grams of sugar per serving. So if it's like a 200 calorie, serving of yogurt, if it's more than 10 grams of sugar, just ditch it. And then the sugar that you're talking about is just naturally occurring fructose that comes from, fresh fruit that has fresh enzymes that help us to break down those, the fat and the carbohydrates from the yogurt and the oats.
Exactly.
And lots of healthy fiber, because let's talk about poop now. Speaking of fiber, the average, I don't even know how long ago it was, thousands of years ago, but the average, human being back then was eating like in the hundreds of grams of fiber. And now we're eating 5 grams of fiber on average per day, which I recommend 25 or more at least. And people have no idea like what fiber, where it comes from, how to get it. They think Cheerios because of what they see on TV, fiber. So let's talk about poop, the importance of poop, the importance of pooping and the correlation between not pooping enough and having a poopy mood, and then how people can improve their poop cycles so that they can have a better mood.
A better poop, a better mood. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it is one of the top 10 tenets in Chinese medicine, and I've heard it said that it's actually throughout all the different modalities. But we say that if the bowels aren't moving, no progress can be made. Basically, you're just, it's like you've put a plug in it and everything just keeps recirculating. And circulating. So you aren't going to get any kind of progress or maintain well-being and balanced health if you aren't removing the waste. So, everybody needs to poop. It should be 12 to 14 inches long and at least one time a day.
Yeah, like this size, guys.
Yeah.
Like this size. Yeah.
and not like grapes, more like bananas in the shape. And it should be soft, not hard, and not runny. And when that's backed up, when the colon is backed up, it directly impacts the GI tract, inflames the GI tract. And then that oftentimes overflows down into the liver, and we see that excess, the liver have to deal with more toxicity that comes down because of a backed up colon. So the liver and the GI tract have a very close relationship. So when one's not working well, they infect the other. So really important for the bowels to be moving every day. It's essential, just absolutely essential.
Yeah, and if we don't, then the backup of bacteria from the food that sits, the waste, that's what the bacteria get to feed on. And then when they eat our food, our toxic waste that backs up, they burp and fart and gas up into our body more toxic chemicals that make us feel poopy. And so I want to clarify on that too, Stephanie, because I know there's probably going to be people who are saying, oh, well, I poop every day. I'm fine. I'm good. But I know that it's not just about pooping and not just having a perfect poop, but there's more to it than that, right?
Say more about that. What are you looking at?
Or yeah, because there could be still, if someone says, I do poop once a day, but I still feel poopy, right? So there's other things like, I know, biofilm, well, maybe there's this whole like environment where maybe they're pooping, but they're not getting all of the waste out. Maybe it's a decent poop, but maybe they're eating a lot more, and they should be someone that has more poop that's released. Does that make sense?
Yes. You know what? Thank you for clarifying that. Yes, we've actually seen people who it was actually a nutrient deprivation. And when they were given some liquid vitamins, had the most beautiful poops ever. Or it was a decrease in beneficial gut bacteria, and they just didn't have the motility or the mobility in the GI tract, and therefore the colon, to have things move out in a successful way. So those are two factors that I would look at: is nutrition, making sure that there's actually good absorption happening. But first you do have to look at cleaning up the biofilm, making sure that's not there.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then as far as the types of solutions, the types of herbs, I know you were going to talk about 5 that people can consume on a fairly regular basis. And maybe if they don't consume them on a regular basis, how else they could get them administered, and how often we should take these.
Well, I mean, because you and I spoke about before, like what are some of your favorite ways of, maintaining happiness or gaining happiness, and so I was looking at, well, what would that be for me? And I have 5 favorites. One is chlorella. I love chlorella. It is like, it's both a mobilizer and binder of environmental toxins, whether it's heavy metals or it's chemicals or it's plastics. It has an amazing level of regenerative vitamins and minerals in it that actually even help our RNA and DNA, and studies are showing that it helps block mutagenic foods. So, if we are going to bump into GMO foods or, high trans fat foods, this is the thing to take. Not only as, helping build, but also as a preventative. I love reishi mushroom. It's actually my spirit herb personally that, is the one that has always, been my saving grace. It stimulates brain activity, neuron activity. It's great for the spirit. In Chinese medicine, we say great wealth follows all who take it. And we mean in all ways, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And then I love Hamamatsu-take, Agaricus blazii, which is a Brazilian mushroom and just an amazing herb, showing that it helps liver cells regenerate themselves. It's really high in your beta-1316 glucans. I love that mushroom too. And then Solomon seal root, Polygonatum. That was one of my teacher's favorites, and I've come to love that herb. It supports the lungs. It supports the heart, the kidneys. It's great for the sexual organs. It bolsters the immune system and helps aid the digestive process. So when it's interesting as an herbalist, when I'm formulating, you have your group or your cadre of herbs that you work with well. You get to know them like your sisters and your brothers. You know their good habits and their bad habits, and when to employ them and when not to. And so, like in my formulas, you'll see a lot of similar herbs because of just my familiarity with them and really knowing them like the back of my hand and when it's appropriate to add them. And then the last thing I love are probiotics. I mean, if probiotics were an herb, it would be considered a king herb. In particular, I love probiotic lysates and what they provide. They create a different method of action than a live probiotic. What they do is they push bad pathogenic bugs out of the GI tract.
Oh, cool. Like security guards. Get out of the club.
Exactly. So then when the good guys come in, they're not having to fight so hard. And
right.
So it's super useful and just like really immediate impact on the immune system, on, gut inflammation, on leaky gut. I mean, you can see improvements in under 35 days.
Oh, and I do need to touch on this because I see and hear and work with a lot of people who are like, oh, I started taking probiotics or I started taking something of a detox mechanism. And they're like, but I stopped because my skin was breaking out. And I'm like, wait a second, that's actually like possibly a good sign. It might just be too much too soon. So can you comment on that?
Yeah. So, you do want to, there's nothing wrong with probiotics. Like in my experience, I've never seen somebody have a bad reaction to them. Now, I have seen them push yeast out and somebody get an itchy bottom, for example. So, all those things they really are quite normal when the pathogens are high. So like you said, you want to moderate it. Do you need to cut the dose in half? Do you need to add more water and lemon into your diet? Do you need to, have your bowels move more regularly? That can help decrease the impact of things moving out to the skin is improving the bowels moving more often.
Totally. It's like, I always tell people, well, that's basically your skin is pooping because if you're not pooping, then your skin is going to poop. So sorry, but that little bit of rash and the acne is poop. It's just coming out of a different vessel. Or like, stop putting so much aluminum to stop sweating because, first of all, that's causing a lot of, cancer around the breast tissue, but it's also preventing your body from letting go of bad bacteria. So it's going to come out somewhere else. So if it can't come out one place, it's going to come out somewhere. It's kind of like earlier you're talking about if you're not pooping, it's like, I always see the visual of, I always tell people the visual. It's kind of like, right now, go in your bathtub and start to fill up the water, in your bathtub. You put, you clog it. And then eventually, you turn off the water. You have control of that. But what happens is that when you're not pooping as much as you should, then you don't have control of it anymore. And the water starts to run all over the bathtub. That's what's happening with all the toxins in your body. They're coming out somewhere else and you're not liking it. So then you stop doing the things that help you to get rid of it. But that's actually counterproductive. Maybe just cut it in half, like you said, until your body can release it without too many negative symptoms. So it's important. And so many people have skin problems and then they cover it all up and then they wonder why they have them. So I know a lot of parents experience constipated kids, a lot of skin rashes, skin issues, and they're putting prednisone on it. They're injecting their faces with all these steroids and stuff. And it's like, no, let's get to the point where we're getting the crap out that causes these symptoms instead of just covering them up with Band-Aids that make things worse, because then you've got extra chemicals in the body, then the liver has to then process. Mm-hmm. So it's like this backwards cycle. I wanted to also talk about, going back to the organs specifically and looking at symptoms. So, here we are talking about skin and stuff. So what I love so much about TCM and Chinese medicine in general is that, let's look at the tongue. Let's look at the color of the eyes. Let's look at, like you said earlier, reddish undertone of the skin, hair, the things that we haven't talked about yet. What are some symptoms that someone might experience or see that may have a correlation with a toxic organ within the context of the pairs that we talked about, we started with, that could also express as depression or anxiety and things like that?
Well, you want to look at the liver for anger and frustration. Those two are really closely, aligned with each other. So when we can't process toxins, they're not moving out of the liver's the biggest organ we have for cleaning the blood and moving toxins out. And when the liver becomes full, it gets congested. It's not processing these toxins. And so things like anxiety, frustration back up. And then we'll see somebody in England, they actually call it being liverish. They'll say, oh, you know, or before a woman's menstrual cycles, they don't call it PMS. They'll say, oh, she's really liverish. She's about to get her menstrual cycle. So that's one of the main emotions with the liver. But like one of the things that we run into today is like the pensive worry. That's going to be more like your spleen. And those are people that have, you know, think a lot, you know, think on things a lot and can't let it go.
Like they hold grudges sort of thing, or like what I talked about earlier, they have a harder time getting over trauma that's happened.
It's like the pensive, holding on, that they can't stop. You know, it increases the worry. And then what happens is that the worry turns into fatigue, and really an inability to concentrate. It really is hard to focus when one's worrying. I mean, what are you doing? You're worrying about worrying, right?
Yeah.
I had a girlfriend say to me once, if worrying fixed things, then everything would be all right.
Oh, right. Good point.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, good point. Okay, go do something. Get my mind off of worry, you know? So there's, and then you were talking about skin, and lungs are so closely related to skin. So sometimes we'll see when people begin working on decongesting their liver, they will break out in rash, or they'll get a cold, you know, like they'll sound really congested in the lungs. And that's because they are moving more toxins out than the liver can comfortably excrete. So it backs up and it goes out through the skin or goes out through the lungs, because the lungs and the skin are really close to each other. So, and then the other thing is, like, we talk about joy, and in Chinese medicine, there's actually an overstimulation. That's like an stimulation, but they'll term it as joy. But it's really, you know, related to like the heart, blood vessels, insomnia, poor memory, spontaneous sweating. You know, when somebody's really kind of jacked up, frankly, it's not really joy. That's
or
not
jilled up.
Joy. What'd you say?
Or jilled up, jacked up or jilled up.
That's right. So those are some of them. What are some of the other ones that you can think of? Like maybe grief and the lungs hold grief.
Yeah, like, you know, thinking about my friends who died of lung cancer, it's like, it's probably in part the air that we're breathing. And then it's, you know, because the mucosa of the nose and the inner lining of the mouth and the lungs is what has to take the first hit of all this toxic air. But then it's also, like you said, the other emotions that go along with it. You know, I've got some family members who are just constantly sick. And I used to be, once a quarter, I would be sick 1 to 2 weeks. I'm like, oh, it's just going around, and I just caught it, just catcher's mitt, and it's just bound to happen. And then when I became a nutritionist, I didn't want to accept that would be like reality, that I was getting sick that often, and I wasn't taking antibiotics. I didn't like how they made me feel. You know, antibiotics alone made me feel like crap and depressed for a long period. So it's being sick that often. It's also, you know, I see a lot of women like with hair loss, and then men too, of course, that could be genetic, but like the eyes, you know, I see a lot of red, yellowish eyes. So is that correlated with any kind of organ congestion too, and emotions?
Yeah, the liver is going to be the yellow tones. And generally the head in general is going to be that things are backing up, which we look at the organs of elimination. We look at the skin, we look at the liver, we look at the GI and the colon and the kidneys as well. And when those are congested, we'll see things back up, like, you know, the ruddy reds, you'll see the yellowish skin, and those are all, you know, the body's not processing. What any kind of toxic waste turns into acid waste. So we want to see that leaving the body. And in the first morning urination, that should actually be in an acidic range. Most people are always like, oh, you should be alkaline urine and saliva all the time. And, you know, I beg to differ. And because where is the acid going? You're going to have to drink so many glasses of 9.5 alkaline water or consume so many alkaline forming foods. You're never going to impact the acidic toxins and their impact on the organ system if they aren't moving out of the body. So the first morning urine should be in the acidic range, and then throughout the day it starts turning a little bit more alkaline. That's the normal flow. When we're asleep, the inner healer should wake up, be doing its business, going around cleaning, mending, moving things down so that they either leave through the urinary route or the fecal route first thing in the morning. That's why we pee and poop, or should.
Yeah.
Wake up, and then start our day, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Yeah, for sure. And that's how I feel like every morning now. But I didn't always feel that way, but a lot of people are having sleep challenges too. So sleep is such a big part of this. And, I think of like kind of what this little vision I had was, the little mouse on Cinderella coming through and sweeping the place while we sleep. And it's like, if you're not sleeping well, if you're waking up a lot throughout the night, or if you're not getting a good 7 to 9 hours of sleep between 10 o'clock and 6 o'clock, then you've got sleep problems, and then you've got detox problems, and you have hormone problems, and then you have mood problems, and then you have sex problems, and then you have all kinds of problems. So it is such an important part, rest. There's some of the basic tenets, of course. And I did want to mention too, there's like this funny new acronym I made up called, what does that mean? It applies to everyone. And I said, plastic making us sick. And so,
that's great.
And so like, I know BPA, a lot of the plastics and people drinking plastic water bottles and all these plastics are exposed to that could literally block the neurotransmitter receptor sites in the brain too. And then, so I wanted to bring that up. And then for women too, PMS, like what Stephanie just said, I like to say, if you're not a liver, you're a dyer. So if you don't have a good liver, then you are a dyer and your body is internally literally decaying, aging, but acceleratedly. And so doing, birth control pills, all these crazy things to regulate our cycle is actually ignoring what our body is saying. Like it's saying, please help me. Like Stephanie was saying, before we have our period, if we have negative symptoms, they call it in Chinese medicine liverish. And so it means that there should be something internally that needs to be addressed inside the liver, instead of just saying, oh, I have to take birth control pills because I have these awful periods and they destroy my life. But instead, what we're saying is, look inside. The body is talking to you, and it's a beautiful communicative device to say, help me, but we're just being taught not to listen to it. So I wanted to talk about hormones too in the gallbladder, because liver and the gallbladder are so connected. But one of the top procedures now in the ER is gallbladder removal.
Right.
What can we do about that?
That actually is one of the areas that I don't have a lot of experience in, is gallbladder. Because I focus so much on the liver, the GI, and the colon, it doesn't tend to be an issue. So I don't really have anything specific that I would say to do for that, other than, really making sure the main organs of elimination are functioning well. Eating things like your cruciferous vegetables, anything that smells like sulfur, or asparagus, artichoke. Those are famous in Europe. They actually make extracts of artichoke for liver, as a liver tonic. Or watermelon. Watermelon's great for phase 2 and, helping create glutathione in the liver. So, when those things are in place, we just, don't generally see that. I don't know what that is, though. I mean, it's so weird. Why would you think it's okay to remove an organ and you don't need it?
And then not give them any kind of, supplemental recommendations to perform the function that they then lost. It's so crazy. It's like,
just don't eat as much. You'll feel it. They're told you'll feel it when you've eaten too much, and don't, you'll know you've got to stop, or it's too greasy.
Right. Stop eating so much fat.
Right.
But wait, hormones are made of fat. And wait, my brain is mostly made up of fat. So wait, I have a crappy mood and I have low hormone output, but I'm eating less fat because you told me to, right? Oh. I think that the comment I would have about what you just said is that, there's a lot of specialists out there. When you go see a specialist for something, special specifically, then they're going to talk about that one organ, but they're not going to, many doctors today are not taught how all of these things relate. And that's what I love so much about TCM and talking to you, is that, like basically what you just said in a nutshell, Yes, eat nuts because they have good fat in them. What you just said in a nutshell is if you're taking care of your liver, if the main areas of detoxification are open and you're giving your body healthy food, water, probiotics, prebiotics, and you're taking care of all those physiological needs and exercising and getting the toxins out too, then an indirect, it's indirectly, it's going to benefit from the other focuses. Yeah. So like if the colon is moving out the poop and processing the stuff that the liver went through, then the gallbladder is able to do its function and things aren't backing up into the liver, or I'm sorry, into the gallbladder.
Into the gallbladder.
Yes. So, and that makes total sense. Cool. Okay. We covered that one. The last thing I wanted to ask about and see if you had any commentary on it is, the staggering rates of cancer now being that they're saying that 1 in 2 men and 1 in 3 women in the next 20 years will have or have had cancer. So emotionally and physiologically both, what are things that you think that we should be doing proactively on a regular day-to-day basis to keep us as far away from that as possible, but primarily keep us in a great weight? So in other words, we're trim, our skin is beautiful, our hair is beautiful, because people care more about the vanity aspect of it than not getting cancer. So they both are going to result from taking care of themselves in the ways that I would like you to suggest.
That's great. Yes. I've got to say that you hit the nail on the head. We look beautiful when we take care of ourselves. We look handsome when we take care of ourselves. We're fit, our skin looks great, we have vitality. People can see it. People say like, what are you doing? You look amazing. And like, hello, I'm drinking great water and I'm moving every day with my girlfriends for a half an hour. That's it. You're getting your social, you're getting your spiritual fix with your girls, and you're moving at the same time. There's so many ways to incorporate that for me, I think the thing that's occurring is this exclusivity versus inclusivity, and including people, like having conversations, like what's happened with that, and positive conversations, like what's going right. It's really easy to make things wrong. I mean, it takes no intelligence at all to make everything and their brother wrong, but what about what's going right? And that has an amazing impact on our moods. There's a study recently done that looking at the words love and gratitude completely shifts the biochemistry. It alkalizes the terrain, which is what we need to bring oxygen into the blood and have the brain work well, have it enhance our moods. So those are some really important things, for me that occur that are sometimes, when I'm talking to people, they're isolated and they're not reaching out. And, I encourage people, get into your community. People who know things you don't know, and things they don't know. And we only know what we know, and we don't know what we don't know. So, hanging out with other people and broadening our horizons, creates a lot of magic. So, yeah.
I love that one. It's like we keeping ourselves in a box and being so afraid to be seen and be vulnerable and show people who we really are is like one of the top things that is making us emotionally sick, is that we're so afraid of being judged. And that's how I see a lot of people being negatively affected by our emotions, because in other interviews, we talked about how negative emotions, worry and fear can actually cause these negative chemicals to be released in the body and thereby affecting the organs. And so this is what I mean by it's kind of bringing it all together. And the thing that I like to teach people to do is like, just get a little jar and write, I am grateful on it. And every night before you go to bed, write down 3 things that you're grateful for, whether or not, and even like if it was a negative situation that you are exploring, what can I learn from this? What can I take from this? And take it into the future and go, yeah, I don't want to learn that one again, but hey, I learned from it and that was a great lesson and I'm grateful for that. And so we can spin anything into a positive. I know that I need extra liver support when I am irritable and I am complaining and I am seeing the negative and stuff. I'm like, whoa, my liver is pissed at me right now. I'm like, I'm just not dealing well with my surroundings because my liver is just overwhelmed. It's like, that's why I'm overwhelmed. And so it just made more sense when you taught me that, which I'm so grateful for. Gratitude. that I now have a love for taking better care of myself through being aware of these emotions that I have.
Yeah. Isn't that something? I mean, I don't know if it's proper or improper to say this, but I really don't care.
Good.
The more we know about how shitty we are, the better the world will be. Because if I don't know when I'm really being a shit to people, I have no control over it, and my shittiness gets all over everybody. But when I can feel that really, whatever that is, that shitty feeling, and I can go, oop, there it is. Okay, take a moment, Stephanie. What's going on here? Oh, they're saying that thing that's like such a trigger for me. Oh my God, it annoys me, or it makes me so mad. And then before I would, have my explosive reaction. But getting to know like the dark parts of Stephanie completely changed my life.
Yeah, I love that. Getting familiar and intimately connected with your shadow. That's like the coolest thing ever, is to go, it's like you're having a conversation with two different people. Like you just said, it's like, stop. Okay. Which part of myself is talking here, and how can I address them? Okay. It's all right. It's all right. You like actually get to stroke it. It's okay. Love on that part of yourself that is worried. It's scared. That part of yourself is just scared of something. Typically fear, I would say. Scared of something, afraid of something that is irrational, that probably won't happen.
Yeah. I mean, what I found is that generally, like doing somebody's intake, their history, generally it comes from when they were a kid. It's something that happens that actually a little kid's brain shouldn't be able to handle because it was an adult thing that happened. So we have a fear. We develop a fear about that thing. And, later on in life, a lot of times that becomes a trigger. Oh, that's that situation. It sort of feels like that situation. And then we get triggered or, scared or, whatever that word is for each of us. And, it's like letting, the little kid know everything worked out okay.
Yes. And you're the adult, you're the parent to the little kid inside of you that is afraid of whatever it was, that boogeyman thing that happened. And you get to have that talk with yourself. I just got in nature. If I'm like triggered, I'm like yoga or nature or just breathe. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if I ever told you this, Stephanie, but I noticed, because I suffer from a lot of back pain, word. I have scoliosis. I was born that way, but yet I also am trying to improve what I notice physically with myself when I am like, I'm in my head about something. I'm laying in bed, my head's spinning, I'm going something about the day. And I'm like, oh, that's what I'm shooting all over myself. I should have done this. I should have done that. So I'm shooting all over myself, and a different version of should. And I feel my back. I start arching my back like this, and I'm like, and I'm not breathing. And I'm like, shallow breathing back. And then that's when I can feel it. I just created that physiological response inside of myself. So that's like catching it while it's happening physically. But then, you're talking about the herbal and the food and stuff too. So which makes it easier to recognize earlier. So I'm not as toxic. So it's like the mental awareness, and then the physical love that we're giving ourselves with herbs, like and food and stuff, I think are so important, and water and all that. So we'll close it up now with your top 3 recommendations and takeaways that you have for people, and I'll summarize them and let you kind of expand on them, and then we can call it a beautiful day for everyone. Listening is my top priority. When I stop listening, everything goes to garbage. That's number 1. So we talked about that. Number 2, herbs are like healthy food. Eat them every day. And then you put in parentheses, I don't eat a salad once a year. Or just do a cleanse once a year. And then 3, go after toxins like the bandits they are. They rob us of a great life. I think we covered that in the entire show. So was there anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, I think it was amazing. You're an amazing hostess, and you elicited all of the conversation that fulfilled on those 3 takeaways. So you did a great job. Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. And thanks for being here and enlightening us with all of this. And I'm not cutting out what you said, by the way. People are swearing on these shows a lot. They actually have studies now that prove that swearing is a great way to release anger. So it could actually help the liver. So to swear is to liver detox. That's my meme for the day. But be selective about how you use it, right? So thank you so much, Stephanie. I'm gonna all the summary of everything and how you can get a hold of Stephanie if you have any questions and to see what project she's working on, because obviously she's doing a lot of studies for all of us to see how we are negatively affecting ourselves with our negative thoughts and the toxins that surround us. You guys can be proactive about this, of course. So any questions you guys have, make sure you contact me. You can contact Stephanie. But thanks again so much, Stephanie. Reminding you guys that the way that we treat and take care of ourselves inside and outside will determine our happiness. You are the one that gets to decide whether you hold on to this stuff or you let it go and realize that this moment right here is the only one that will ever exist. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.